all stand to our feet. Everyone stand to your feet. You guys thought I was joking. We're doing calisthenics this morning. Come on. You guys ready? Everyone just kind of stretch their arms a little bit. All right, waking up. All right, come on. This is a leadership workshop. I'm trying to help you guys see leading by example, right? If I'm not willing to do it, how can I expect you to do it? Shane, what are you doing? You're not stretching. Come on. You know, that's not looking very good. Come on. You guys, this is going to be a long day. We need to get ready for today, huh? All right. All right. You guys go ahead and take your seats. Thought I'd bring a little humor. They say laughter is good medicine, right? Yes. Now, I want interaction. This isn't me PowerPointing you guys to death today. This is me going to actually interact with you guys. So when I say something, we're like in a black church, okay? You guys are actually respond. You're not very good at it. Come on. There we go. Come on. Amen, brother. Come on. All right. We're going to have a good time today. My name's Shane Cantrell. I'm with the Manufacturing Extension Center. And how did today happen? You guys might be like, well, why are we here? Well, here's what happened. We had something that happened in August of last year. We said, what would it look like if Montana was a center of manufacturing excellence? Specifically, what would Western Montana look like? So we're like, okay, it sounds like a pipe dream, right? Okay, what are we going to do that? So we had a survey go out to all of our manufacturers in our area, and they had 3 or 4 top needs that came up. One of them was workforce and talent. That's why we're here today. The pilot project was actually say, hey, how do we deal with situations where a worker gets promoted to a leadership role as a supervisor, a manager? You guys ever had a situation where you just get thrown in, sink or swim? Come on. Even if your manager's looking, raise your hand because you're lying if that's not the truth. Come on. That happens all the time, right? We don't set each other up for success. So we want to figure out why don't we just have a day where we have a workshop? I'm not saying this is the silver bullet, but this is going to be part of you guys actually finding a way to get some tools to be successful, okay? So what we're trying to do today is give you guys some tools to be able to apply in your workplace. We don't want to just PowerPoint you guys to death. We want to have some interaction. We're going to have some questions. We're going to have some opportunity for you guys to be able to interact and have some takeaways. You know what the worst thing is for training? You go to training for a day or several days, right, or a couple hours, and then what happens most of the time? Come on, somebody respond. Nothing. Exactly. Who said that? See, that's what happens a lot of times is that we don't do anything with it. If we don't apply it, it's a waste of your time. It's a waste of all of our time, this putting our time into this. So we want you guys to apply this stuff. That's where it really meets the road. So the other 2 teams that we have active is manufacturing excellence. What would it look like if there's best in-class manufacturing practices, quality, on-time delivery, cost, all those things, safety. And then we also have another team that's dealing with automation and technology needs. How many of you guys know that we have to figure out how to be best in class in terms of automation and technology? Nobody's raising their hands. Nobody cares. All right, come on. I'm gonna call you guys out all day long until you guys get this figured out. So our sponsors today, we're very thankful for Whitfleet. Jenny's right here in the back, if you raise your hand. Whitfleet's helping sponsor this. First Interstate Bank. Let's give First Interstate Bank a hand as well. Thank you. They made this possible for you guys to be able to get a discounted rate, only $50. This would usually be hundreds of dollars for each person to be able to go to some kind of training like this. So it's an awesome opportunity. People volunteered their time. So I want to thank every one of our presenters. Beyond presenters, we had several other people behind the scenes helping plan this event. It's been months, right, Cam? We've had a lot of people, even all the people here on these side chairs, and then we'll have some others up here in the front. They have worked tirelessly for you guys to be able to actually have this opportunity. So let's give them a hand as well. So you'll see we have several. We have 9 of us that'll be presenting today. So you're not going to just hear Shane speak all day long. How many of you are thankful for that? Oh man, you're not supposed to. Man. All right. Well, I got you guys set up for that one, huh? All right. Co-hosts. So we have all these different organizations that have helped us host and put this together. You guys can see we have MMEC, New York Life Insurance, American Pride. We also have People Ready, Sadic Technologies, Jackson Contractor Group, Vesta, Missoula Economic Partnership, Glacier HR Services, and the Western Montana Manufacturing Partnership. That's really how this event happened. It was the partnership of several different organizations to be able to bring this together. So what are we going to do today? I'm kind of giving you guys a little bit of an intro, and then we're going to go into what does it really look like to be a leader? You know, How many of you guys have heard a lot of different things said about leaders? Come on, raise your hand. See, there's a lot of different things of what we think leadership looks like, and it's multicolored, it's multifaceted, it's not one thing, right? Business 101, what makes sense to be able to actually know about your business and know what metrics to measure and some of these other things. We're going to take a quick break. We'll get into communication, situational leadership questionnaire. Yeah, you guys are going to actually take a little thing here and be introspective. Sometimes it's hard to look in the mirror, but that's what we're going to do and see if there's some things that we can improve ourselves. We'll have some lunch from Qdoba. We'll get that in. And there's also in the back here, I didn't do any housekeeping, but there's restrooms located in the hallway. If you go out this door, you immediately take a right and it'll be against that wall in the back. There's another door out this way. You'll see the bathrooms in the hallway there. And there's also water and coffee in the back here if you need to be able to grab some water and coffee. Feel free, if you guys are feeling like you're nodding off, stand up, stretch, get walking around in the back, pace nervously so that you can distract the speaker. That always works really well. Problem solving, we'll get into that. And then we'll take another break. Lead by example, situational leadership questionnaires. We're going to actually discuss that a little bit. We're going to be able to kind of fit, what does this mean and how do I actually apply the results of these questionnaires that I did? And then we'll wrap up and get you guys out of here. All right, you guys ready? Yeah. There's 2 people who are ready. I'm going to try that again. Are you guys ready? Yeah. Wow, like there's 10 people now. All right, we're working on it. Okay, so what does it mean to be a leader? Really what we're looking at is leadership is about how do I get people to not only follow me, but how do they influence others to follow others in terms of one direction. So we're going in a couple things that we want to do is really, I want you guys to understand why you're here today. You know, obviously your management or your organization believes in you enough. They think that you have the ability to lead people. You're like, I don't know why they think that, because I just got thrown in. Well, they obviously see there's some good qualities about what you have in terms of how you are as a person, how you are as a worker, how valuable you are to the team. So you have the ability to add more value to the company using this right up here, your brain. A lot of times it's hard when we're used to using our hands all day long and just working really hard. How many of you guys have become expert firefighters? Raise your hand. Oh, I know there's a lot more of them in here because I used to brag about that all the time when I was in operations. I survived the day. Yeah, dude, I made it through that. That was like nearly impossible. So we want to figure out how do you actually use your brains and work smarter rather than harder. Being a good leader means transitioning your value to the company from your neck down to your neck up. So we're not just being physical people anymore. We're thinking about how do we actually think things through so that we can actually be better leaders. Thinking versus doing. All right, so you guys know this guy, Edwards Deming. Who's heard of Edwards Deming? Raise your hand. Anyone that's been in the lean workshop, please raise your hand. All right, this guy is like amazing. Toyota, anyone heard of Toyota? Anyone seen those cars driving around? Toyota? Nobody's heard of Toyota. That's amazing. All right, well, this guy was before his time. He went over, he helped Toyota out in amazing ways because us here in the United States, we're very prideful. We thought we had it all figured out. So this guy found out that 94% of failures have nothing to do with all of your employees. What does it do to? It's due to the system or process the worker is forced to work in. 6% is due to the worker. So you guys complain about workforce and talent challenges? If I could just get them to show up to work on time, if I could just get them to do this right or that right. We're not very good at cultivating culture. One thing I want to ask you guys at the end of this is, how do you become the employer of choice? How do you not have to fight over breadcrumbs for somebody to come work for you? Why would they want to work for you? Huh? That's what we need to be asking. This is the reason why most of us have problems. Because we blame it on the people rather than us as management and leaders influencing and putting in systems in place to help people be successful. The end of his life, he said, is about 99%. So, I mean, we have to put systems and processes in place, and that all starts with leadership. What's the number one reason why people quit their job? Anyone know it? Your supervisor, your boss. Whoever it is that you report to on a daily basis is the main reason why people leave. Okay, leadership exercise. Here's what I'm going to do. Could I get somebody to help pass out some flyers for me here real quick on the leadership exercise? I need a couple people, please, to grab them over there on the table. Thank you. So what we're going to do is we're going to ask you guys a few questions. You're going to ask yourself some questions. What do leaders do? You know, what does a good leader look like? What is the best boss you've ever had? Not just a good boss, but like a good leader, somebody you want to follow, somebody that you look after. What are the traits that make that that person successful in terms of what you think is good leadership? I want you guys to be thinking about that. If you guys have extras, please just leave them at the end of your table. We'll pick them up afterwards. So what are the traits for that? There goes my people, I must follow them, for I'm their leader. We want to think about what does a good leader look like? What are those traits? So I want you guys to write those down as you're getting that. If you guys don't have pens, please raise your hand. We'll have to figure that out. That was an oversight. Here. Just keep your hand raised if you guys still need pens. Can you catch? Whoop. All right. Who needs pen? Back there in the back. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Sorry, that was dangerous. I shouldn't do that anymore. All right. Who else needs a pen? Anyone else need pens? You got them? Okay, thank you. All right, so you guys are going to take that next few minutes here, and you guys are going to think about the most incredible leader and what are the traits, what are the specific characteristics of that leader that you think are amazing. All right, how did that go? I know that you guys can continue to write ideas down as we're going along. What was that like? Anyone want to share? Were there some things that really stuck out in your mind? Don't all jump up at once. Come on. There's 40 people. This is a safe place. Clarity and vision. Empower people. That's good. So, clarity, you said?
Well, vision and clarity in that vision.
All right, should have tested these out first. Vision, clarity. What else? Let's name off a couple of these.
Communicates.
Communicates? That's really good, huh? You're stealing thunder from one of our speakers now. That's really good.
Empower.
Empower, right? That's good. Come on, we got to get somebody over here. These guys are like really on top of you guys. Come on. What's that?
Include people.
Include people. That's really good. So, yeah, that's close to empower, right?
Trustworthy.
Trustworthy. That's huge, right? Can't do much without that. What else? What's that? Respectful. That's huge, isn't it? All right, the other side over here, I heard somebody.
Somebody could be a mentor.
Mentor. Yeah, that's great. All right. Those are great. I'm sure you guys could list a whole bunch more, and I'm sure you guys have a whole bunch of awesome things on your paper. So we'll come back to that, okay? Don't throw those things away. We're going to come back to those, so save those. We'll come back at the end of my time here. Now, how do exceptional leaders lead? They articulate the vision, right? We even have that up here. They inspire confidence, engage their employees in making decisions. So you don't just tell them what to do, you empower them to make decisions. You guys ever know about they say like the best parenting is to help people think things through and ask questions and why they're making a decision, right? Demonstrate a high standard for quality and innovation. They effectively delegate. That's a huge one. You guys ever felt capped? You're like, I just can't do anymore. Well, maybe you need to learn how to delegate a little bit better. Treat employees with respect. That's one right up on the board. Make the best use of employees' abilities. You know what? There's 8 wastes typically that are listed in lean manufacturing. It depends on the flavor of lean training that you get, but there's typically 8 wastes. You know what one of them are? One of them is? What is it?
Wasted employee potential.
Yep. Or non-utilized talent, or it's the employee's abilities, right? If you're not utilizing the talent on your team, that's a waste. You guys need to tap into this thing on your team. You have some really intelligent people, and some people actually know more than you. I know it's hard to believe, but it's okay. You don't have to be insecure as a leader to be able to rely on each other's abilities. Develop their people. We're actually empowering them, right? We're developing them to perform at the highest level. Soliciting feedback. You guys ever, this one's a challenging one, especially if you're insecure. If you want to open it up for people to say something in an open and honest, and I would add respectful way. A lot of times we don't do this very respectfully, but this is something to really reflect. Now ask yourself this. This is questions for you to ask your associates or somebody else on your team. How often do I do each one of these things here? Never, sometimes or often. Delegate responsibilities to you. I would even think about this. If you guys, I would write down some of these things. If you guys have some notes or something like that, you can write it back on the back of one of those flyers if you want. But do I delegate well to provide you learning and growth opportunities? Do I provide feedback? Do I recognize your efforts and outcomes? Not just saying, okay, good job, we're having a pizza party. Am I specific and I know why you got the pizza party? Right? You guys ever have those pizza parties and you're like, I don't know what I did, I just did my job like I normally did? Come on, raise your hands. You guys have never done that? Maybe I'm the only dysfunctional manager that's done that, because I've done pizza parties and I didn't tell them why they did a good job. I was like, hey, let's just have a pizza party. No communication on exactly why we're having the pizza party. Motivate you to perform at your highest level. Involve you in plans, decisions at the organizational level. And do I reinforce the importance of your contributions to the organization's success? So here's some key indicators of leadership effectiveness. What's your vision for the organization? Maybe you don't have any, and that's okay. So you just got to recognize that. Sometimes we don't have any idea what our vision is for the organization or how I play into that. Maybe we need to have a conversation respectfully with our manager or even upper management. How do we communicate this more effectively? What are your top organizational goals and priorities? What are your core values? What are the things that you like really define you as an organization? What's your why? How many of you guys just quickly know what your why is in existence as a company? Somebody just tell me, please. I want a quick answer.
Profit.
Yeah, that can be a real one, right? Anyone else besides just money? What's your why? See, that if we can't answer that quickly, that might be some opportunity for us, right? Now, what and how have you contributed to your professional development of your employees? What have they learned from you? If you're always busy and you're always firefighting, we don't get to do this last one very well, right? Would you agree? If you're just trying to like survive the day, we don't get time to do this very often, and you wonder why people have bad morale, they're discouraged, the culture sucks, no one wants to work for you. Okay, I just said that, yeah. So we want to change this, right? We want to change this. We're not focusing on the negative, we want to figure out how do we empower people. Consider your leadership strengths. How valued do your employees feel? Do they feel like, man, every time I'm around Shane, I just feel like I could conquer the world? Or every time I'm around Lane, I just feel like, hey man, I can do this thing. I have the ability to do it. How do your employees how do you make sure they feel valued? You're not just stroking their egos. People can see right through fakeness, right? I mean, you authentically pull out something that's good about them. How strongly do your employees identify with your organization? How much pride do they feel? Like, do they feel like, hey, I'm glad that I work for Lubrizol Vesta. This place is awesome. It has so much potential. We've grown amazingly in the last several years, and we have incredible future. Are your employees saying that? Are you careful to read the employee and situation before you decide how to respond? We will get into that in communication, right? Do you have an open working environment where your employees feel comfortable bringing concerns? Or are you just one that's insecure and you make an excuse and you get defensive? There's a reason for that. I mean, immediately we come and we get on the defense, right? But you guys don't do that in the room here. A leader is not, right? You guys don't do that? Come on, there's no response. You guys are getting silent on me. Okay, well, we'll work on it. A leader is not. Many leaders model knower instead of learner. You guys ever feel like you have to know everything? It's hard sometimes as a supervisor. You feel like if I don't know the right answer, they might take me out of my position because I don't know what I'm doing. This is a real thing, right? The knower, what do? You try and hide your gaps. You try and hide things that you know that you're not good at, and you try and pretend. Fake it till you make it. You guys ever done that? Come on, be honest. I've done it. Nobody? Come on, over here. Nobody's fake it till you make it? John's the only one that's honest in this side of the room over here. Now, the learner acknowledges your failures and you publicly learn from them. You know what happens? Sometimes the best learning opportunity is to be humble enough to admit you made a mistake. I had an opportunity one time, and I say opportunity, didn't think about it at the time as an opportunity, but I blew up on an employee. It just been repeated. You ever have those employees that just like completely complain and complain and complain, and I was just done. I was just exhausted, and I finally just let him have it, and I disrespected him. One of our core values was respect. And I did not respect him in that moment. I publicly kind of snapped on him. You guys ever done anything like that? Am I the only loser in the group here? Wow. Thank you guys for making me feel better. All right, so you know what I did? I quickly finally realized everyone's face was like, and I'm like, oh crap, I just did something that was not good. I'm like, you know what? What I did right there was not okay. That was not respectful. And I apologize. I didn't handle that well. We're going to talk afterwards, but that's not cool what I just did. What did I do there? I restored the standard. When you guys actually are humble enough to admit your mistakes publicly, if you do it publicly, you need to apologize publicly. Own your stuff. I'm not perfect at it, but I had to learn. I made a mistake. Sometimes that's the best thing what we can do. Total employee involvement. Involve your people. How do you allow them some say? You know, are you actually allowing them to make some decisions? Or are you just micromanaging? Feeling like if they don't do it the way that you do it, it's not going to get done right. We're always hovering. I have to work on that sometimes, you know. Provide clear understanding of the vision. Maybe you implement a suggestion system. I would be careful with this bullet here. You guys who's ever used a suggestion system in your organization? Raise your hand. How did it go? You're laughing. Not so well, huh? What, you mind sharing? Is that okay to share with the group just briefly?
Oh, it went nowhere. I mean, lots of suggestions. And
Yep.
they may still be in the box. I don't know.
That happens, right? Come on, I mean, if you are too busy to follow up on suggestions, we're all busy, right? All of us are busy. Everyone in here would actually, if you're doing anything, you're probably really busy. Now, here's the thing. Communication that we'll get to. Communicate. Just tell them, hey, you know what? We do have it on a list. It's documented. We got your suggestions. It's a great idea. But our top 3 priorities are this right now. We are going to get to this. It's just right now we don't have the resources or the time. We have some other things that are higher on the list of priorities for us right now. Just give them feedback. People on the floor will understand if you're open and honest with them. But if you just try and hide it and hope the problem goes away, just put your head in the sand, that thing's going to fester. And you know what's going to happen? What's going to happen with most of your people? Eventually.
They'll leave or morale's going to be bottomed out.
Right. So they'll just either give up, they'll stop suggesting, or they'll leave. If they're really a leader, they'll say, you know what? My voice isn't heard here. Maybe I need to go start my own thing. Maybe I need to go with an organization that can use my skills, utilize my talents. So I want you guys to also think about how do you measure participation. If you guys have a whole... I honestly don't like this kind of environment all the time where you're sitting in a conference room. What I prefer is stand-up meetings. You guys ever done stand-up meetings before? Come on, Mike. You guys have done stand-up meetings there. You have not?
You said, we're talking about it.
You've talked about it? Okay, all right. All right, well, okay. We'll work on that. If you guys need help with that, something we can do. But it's 10, 15 minutes. You guys can quickly do something. Get understanding so people can actually understand and measure participation. You get everyone engaged to have a say. All right, here's a cool little video. You guys, who likes J.J. Watt? There's a couple people. Well, you might not like this video if you don't like J.J. Watt. So.
If, some kids watching this and kind of doubting themselves and their ability, what advice would you give?
I think the first piece of advice that I would give would be to enjoy where you are now. I think even here in the NFL today, if I could go back to high school and relive my high school days, I'd do it in a heartbeat. Because it was one of the most fun times of my life, and the relationships that you build and the people that you're around every single day, that's the most important thing ever. So I think it's learn to enjoy and embrace where you are in life right now. And then the other thing I would say is to make the most out of every single moment of every day. One of the best things somebody told me once was, look at your day in 10-minute increments. Write down on a piece of paper your day in every 10 minutes what you did for that 10 minutes. And then look at how many of those 10-minute increments you wasted. And then sit down for the next day and figure out how you're going to waste less 10-minute increments. So the more productive you can make your day, the more effective you can make your day, the better you're going to be in the end. And if you're looking to make a big dream come true, start with the big dream. What's your biggest dream? I mean, if it's playing in the NFL, it's playing in the NFL. Okay, how do I get there? Well, I'd probably get drafted. That'd be better than not drafted. How do you get drafted? I want to get drafted in the first round is my best option. So what did the top defensive end in the first round get? What was his 40 time? How big was he? How fast was he? How strong was he? Okay, how do I accomplish those numbers? Well, I need to get away from him. Okay. So how can I get in the weight room and improve my speed, my agility, my strength today? What can I do today to improve that? Well, it's going to also involve nutrition, so how can I eat properly? So it's a process. You take the big dream and you break it down to its simplest form. What can I do today to make myself better? And once you break everything down into that and you do those things, that's when you have big time success. It's not about just chasing a massive dream. It's about what are you going to do today to make your dream come true.
You guys singing that? You guys sang really excited about that. You guys okay? You guys got a pulse? Oh, you got a pulse?
Yeah.
There's two. Do you got a pulse? Yes. Come on, guys. All right, let's wake up. This is good stuff. What was it about that video that stuck out to you? Anything?
Just a reminder of how valuable time is.
Yeah, it goes pretty quick, doesn't it? Yeah. Anything else that anyone noticed out of that video that was encouraging?
Well, when you have that big picture, that big goal, some people look at it and say, I'll never get there. But if you break it down,
Right.
little by little, you can. It's just like the elephant. If you eat it a bit at a time, you'll eventually get there.
It's good. Really good. Yeah. So a lot of times it feels daunting. You guys ever feel discouraged like this is an impossible task? Right? I mean, like sometimes it just feels like, how are we going to get out of this hole? How are we going to change? You know, like, because we can get discouraged by what's happening around us sometimes. So one thing that you want to do a lot of times is make sure that you're preparing and motivating your people. You guys ever had times where you always focused on the negative with your team? Come on. I'll be the first one to call myself out. I had an opportunity, yes, as an opportunity, this one time where I actually went down on the floor. How many of you guys actually do daily walks down on the floor? Good job. It's awesome. Now, if you guys are disciplined about that, you won't have the problem that I had. I went down on the floor and they're like, what now? What happened there? I hadn't been on the floor for like several weeks because I was just buried. You guys ever been buried? Yeah? It was not an excuse. I was not disciplined to get down on the floor, and they saw every time he comes down on the floor, there's a problem. I never see Shane unless there's a problem. I'm not doing a good job at motivating the people. All right? So I had some problems there that I needed to work through to figure out how to do better at that. So I realized, hey, you know what? Every time I'm having people in for a weekly meeting, I'm talking about quality problems. You guys ever had those things where you're just berating people? Well, we need quality, we need quality. And I was just hammering on them about rework. I'm like, it's killing us, guys. And I'm like, after a while, they just, I could tell they weren't very excited to be in the meeting. You guys ever go into meetings where everyone's just like, kind of dawdle in, you're like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. That was what was happening. I'm like, we got to do something better. There's got to be some kind of win that I can share. So I was like, wonder if we could take pictures of our installs, because the guys in fabrication, we called our installers the glory boys. They would always get the glory. They go out there, they install this beautiful island, and it's like, and the customers, they're like, oh, this is so beautiful. Thank you so much. And the guys in fabrication, they never even heard anything. They slaved on this thing for 3 weeks, and they never even saw that it was completed. So we started taking pictures every week, and we shared the pictures with them, and all of a sudden our morale started increasing. The guy that was polishing that thing for 3 weeks, he's like, dude, I worked on that island. I did that bullnose perfectly. I did that lamination that took me forever to deal with that. All of a sudden now they're taking pride, and it's motivating them because you're having a win. Employee involvement, you guys getting your people involved. You sharing information. Does it feel like a secret society sometimes as management? Maybe as management, when you're in it, you don't think so. But I would ask your people on the floor or anywhere else in the office or other areas, do they feel like everything's secretive? Do they feel like you're open? Yeah, we were saying, oh, we have an open door, but they never feel like there's an open door. Just be real, huh? If they don't feel like you're open and honest about even sometimes the financials, understand there's certain things that you may not want to divulge because of certain things that are confidential, but maybe you can say, hey, percentage-wise, this is how we're doing. How do they know if they're winning? You guys ever went to a football game and they didn't have a scoreboard for a professional game? Be crazy, right? We do that how often in our workplace? How do you know if you had a good day?
It's calling home.
Yeah.
We all go home happy.
How do you know that like you did well though? You did your job well, that you feel like it's a win, we really succeeded?
When we meet our goals for the day.
Do you guys have some goals and everyone knows what they are? Sorry, I'm not just calling you out. I'm using you as an example because a lot of times this is common. It's okay if you don't have that. How do you feel, you know?
I deal with mammoth sizers, so we have an amount that we get dipped every day.
Nice. Okay.
So like the next day when we're able to get everything inspected and sent down to our other facility to get built.
Yeah.
That's
Good. You guys have some goals. You have some kind of target, right? If you don't have any of that, it's hard to feel like you actually did well for the day, right? So share your information. Make sure you empower champions. You know what? If you're always saying, those darn millennials, how many times have you heard that? If you start speaking that over people, you know what? You might have a self-fulfilling prophecy. They might really suck because you keep telling them how much they suck and how much they don't show up to work on time and how much they can't do this and they can't do that. How about you empower them and you see them as a champion? You call out the real things, not just flattery, but you actually call out the real talents inside of them and you empower them to be champions. I think it might actually work. It may not work for everyone, but there are a lot more people who respond well to that rather than you getting the whip, right? Am I the only one that... Okay, I must be crazy. You guys are looking at me like I'm like crazy, but this is real stuff, right? What about experimentation? You guys ever try stuff and sometimes you learn and sometimes you're like, that didn't work? You guys ever have that ability to do that at work? Or are you just too busy, you can't afford to experiment?
No, all the ideas work. It's good.
Wow. See, now Shane's the brainchild here. This is the better of the Shanes. He wants to bring a little confusion. His name's Shane as well. He's actually the upgrade of Shane. He's like way better. It's real though. Like, how do we actually have that time? How do we dedicate that time and guard it to be able to experiment? We have to get off the hamster wheel, right? Installing enlightened and realistic performance measures. Are you guys evaluating and using reward systems? Now, you got to be careful with reward systems. What kind of behavior are you going to create by having a reward system, right? For example, there's an example of somebody that was, a piece rate system. You guys ever heard of a piece rate system? You do so many widgets, we're going to give you a bonus. And it's not going to be next week, it's going to be 3 months from now, or it's going to be at the end of the year. You guys ever have those annual bonuses? Come on. All right. Are you excited about waiting a year for your annual bonus? It's hard to like see beyond next week, let alone like 12 months from now, right? I mean, how do we, it may not even be money. Maybe it's just like acknowledging somebody. If you have a stand-up meeting, you might be like Mike saying, hey, I want to acknowledge somebody else on our team here. They did a great job. They actually helped me with the implementation of our new software. They went through and they spent 50 hours this week helping me debug this whole thing and giving me feedback so we could actually implement our system. Be a specific acknowledgement in front of your team. You could do tier meetings. You do a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, to where people are getting acknowledged and they're just feeling like somebody actually acknowledged their idea. Hey, you know what? Lane had this incredible idea, and he told us to do this a little bit differently, having our tools right next to the workstation, 5S that thing. It saved us this much time. I thank Lane for actually helping us get us the tools that we needed to be able to do our job better. Those kind of things. What about pilot projects? You guys ever have little pilot projects that you guys are going after one area and saying, hey, if we do well in this area, maybe we can apply it to something else? Come on, John, raise your hand back there. You guys have an area right now that you guys are focusing on. You can learn sometimes and apply it in different areas if you just focus on one smaller thing. If you think, well, how can we change the whole organization? You're like, dude, that's pretty daunting. Let's focus on one area. Which type of leader are you? I want you guys to think about this. Are you the one that's like the old dictator, like John in the back there? Do it my way or the highway? You know? Or are you more like, hey, you know what? Do it your way. It's all good. We're here in Missoula. It's all good, man. Don't worry about it. You just show up for work and we'll be cool. Or are you going to be like the lean style learner? Follow me. We're going to figure this thing out together. I'm in this with you. We're a team. All right? We're not just going to have it to where you're just like flailing. I'm going to give you the tools. I'm going to empower you to do what you need to do your job well. I'm going to set you up for success. So there's this quote from Booker T. It says there are 2 ways of exerting one's strength. One is what? Come on. Push them down, right? You guys are quiet over there. And when the other one is what? Pulling them up. All right, so we need to sometimes build people up. You ever felt so beat down, that you just don't even want to face life anymore? I've been in that moment. That's outside of this class. But there's a lot of people in your organization that are feeling really beat down. You can never encourage too much. Don't do flattery, but you can never encourage, if it's authentic, you can never encourage too much. I'd encourage you guys to start pulling your team up. If your actions inspire others to dream. When's the last time you inspired somebody to actually dream again? Learn more, do more, become more, you are a leader. That was one of our presidents, John Quincy Adams. You think he might have known something a little bit, huh? We could learn how to do this a lot better. I know I can. How many of you guys feel like you're an expert in inspiring others? If anyone raised their hands, I'd call you a liar. I wouldn't want to do that and embarrass you in front of everyone, because none of us are experts. We're all learning. We're all growing, right? If we think we're an expert, then we cap ourselves. If we get pride involved, I'm an engineer, man. I'm very prideful at times. I got a master's degree, and I could say all these accolades. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, do you care about your team? Are you empowering people? Is your customer happy? Are we inspiring others? Leadership traits. All right, so you guys got that paper in front of you guys still, right? Pull it out. All right. I want you guys to do this. If you flip over the back side, you should have a self-evaluation on the back side of that page. 1 says that this is very like me. 2, this is somewhat like me. Or 3, this is not at all like me. So to your right-hand side of it, or right next to that area that you wrote down, I want you to be introspective here for a moment. We're going to take about 2 or 3 minutes. You may not finish. But I want you to think about this. Hey, is this like me, very like me, somewhat like me, or not at all like me? Score yourself. You might be surprised, or you might be like, yeah, I kind of knew that. I really need to work on this. Go ahead and take the next couple minutes. Do that. And just a side note for all the presenters, real quick. I didn't get to communicate with you guys beforehand. We have a timekeeper up here to make sure that we're on board. You want to raise your hand here, Linda? All right, so if you're getting close to your time, Linda's going to make sure that you are respecting everyone else's time here. So, and this is being recorded, so every one of you guys are going to transfer this to the next speaker. We got 2 for the teams that have 2 people, so we're going to be able to transfer that. This is going to be able to be recorded. It's actually on cable television. It will be available online as well. Here, it'll be scheduled here. How far from now, Ron?
3 to 4 weeks.
3 to 4 weeks from now, we'll be able to have this. So you guys can share this opportunity with other people if you want as well. If they couldn't be here for some reason, we'll have this available, on that website that they could watch that as well. So, all right. How you guys doing on the scoring? Is this one challenging? Sometimes it's hard to score yourself. Have you guys ever said, all right, I'm going to score myself on the exam and I'm not going to cheat and change the answer and you know what I mean? Let's be real with ourselves. How was it? Somebody just be open and vulnerable. Anyone feel like there's an area that you can grow in? Raise your hand if you feel like there's an area you can grow in. Everyone should raise your hand. If you're not, I want to talk to you. Can I work for you? Because you must be incredible. Or you might be miserable and I don't want to work for you. So there's reality of things that we have to work on, right? So I would take your top 3 over this next 60 to 90 days and say, hey, talk to people that work with you in your team or above you, other people that would be honest with you and say, hey, can you help me with this? Get somebody that's really good at the areas that you're not good at. What's an area that you guys had listed that is one that's challenging for you?
For me, it's hard to trust people when they don't prove themselves trustworthy. It's hard.
So trust. Trust is a big one for you?
It's easy for me to trust people initially.
Yeah.
And it's easy for me to trust them once they've proven themselves. But when they continue to, fall short and don't care, it's like, okay, it's hard to continue being that supportive, trusting, inspiring.
Okay. So there's some hurt there sometimes, right? It's not easy being a leader. It's not for wimps, right? I mean, we have to have a thick skin sometimes. You get beat up, right? It's both ways. So that's good. Anyone else? Come on. There's got to be somebody else here. Do you want me to call myself out again? So you can feel comfortable? Sometimes you actually learn the most from people's mistakes. Somebody please help me out here. Over here.
One of the things I need to work on is vision. All my departments are support departments, so Basically, it's,
Yeah.
yeah, everything goes smooth, we're doing great.
Yeah.
There's always room for improvements. I need to share that vision with my team better.
That's really good. Yeah, it's challenging. Sometimes you just get busy and it's hard to spend that time to do that, right? It's good. Go ahead.
I have to say delegating, sometimes it's just easier to do it yourself.
We think it is, right? Anyway, yeah. In the short term, sometimes that's accurate. That's good. That's really good. Awesome. Well, I want you guys to think about that. You don't have to open up to me, but I want you to be real with yourself. Hopefully, that's something that you guys can take. Don't just throw this thing in the trash. You're like, that leadership crap, man. This guy, whatever. Try and actually get something out of this stuff. It's not about me. It's about what you can get out of this. So here's some typical leadership traits. You guys listed a few earlier. Empathy. You know, are you actually understanding what's going on the floor? If you've never been on the floor, you may not have much empathy for what they're going through. When they're having maintenance issues 24/7, when they're having quality problems or safety issues, or they don't have the tools or the resources, they don't have communication, it's hard to have empathy. Are you visionary? Integrity. You know, are you doing what you say you're going to do? Are you respectful? Do you cause tension without stress? Now that's a tough one, right? Some people have different thresholds of stress. So you need to interact with certain people differently. Some people are real sensitive. I'll be the first one to tell you, sometimes I get pretty sensitive. You know, like I get my feelings hurt over stuff. And so you need to know your people, know your team, to understand, hey, I want to cause a stretch goal for them, but I don't want them to feel like, hey, this is impossible, dude. You're expecting me to do quadruple the amount of effort in the same amount of time, and you haven't changed anything. What's the definition of insanity again? You guys know?
The same thing over and over and expecting a different outcome.
Yeah. So you're expecting me to just keep going as the way things are normal and expecting things to just all of a sudden jump up and be crazy amazing? We have to figure out how ways to change. So we need to make sure that we're not causing this stress to where it's impossible. Set people up for success. All right, effective leaders, self-evaluation. We just did that. Actually, I jumped ahead of that. So, all right, foundations of a good leader. Now, this is one thing that we're going to jump into in each one of these next topics, and you guys are going to dive in a little bit more. So do you know your business, not just your job? I'm not just isolated with the blinders on. I'm in the calendaring process, or I'm doing what you'd be doing welding, or you'd be doing engineering. Engineering's my world. That's all that I know. I don't care about anything else. Do I know the business? Am I a good communicator? You know, can I make sure that people understand what I'm saying? There's a proverb that says, the tongue of the wise makes knowledge acceptable. So just because you know everything, which that would be debatable, right? But we think, or we try to act like we know everything, doesn't mean that we are good communicators of that. How do we make people receive that? How do we help people get there? If you just go and you're just lambasting everybody, they're not going to hear you, right? If we're always dissing on people and we have a bad culture in terms of ripping on each other, it's not good communication. Well-organized planning. I'm not going to say any more because these guys have some awesome presentations. Are you good at organizing and planning? Are you a good problem solver? All right. What about, are you leading by example rather than just telling people what to do? So where do we begin? Before we discuss each of these pillars of leadership that we are going to focus on today, I'm not saying that these are the pillars. These are just ones that we discussed as a team we thought were pretty important. You guys might think of other topics at the end, in fact, that we want you guys to say, hey, what do you guys really need? What would help you guys in terms of leadership training or any other kind of training that would help you guys? So we feel it's important for you to understand what a good leader looks like first. The next thing is, without it, you're going to have to struggle, because you know it's going to actually. You guys ever feel like sometimes negativity is contagious, or any other issues that you have? You reproduce what you are, right?
Yeah.
And you are who you surround yourself with. So if we have a bad culture, it's not going to just be in one area. It's going to seep, and it's getting to everything else. So we need to think about, how do we actually cause something good to happen to permeate throughout the whole organization? So it's a mindset. You'll either find obstacles or opportunities. What are you looking at? You always focused on what people are doing wrong? Or are you focused on, hey, this is what you're doing right. This is an opportunity for us. Instead of saying, man, we really suck. We're like on ground zero for lean manufacturing. Or our communication's like at -5. But you know what? there's an opportunity. If we can just do a small impact there, we can have a huge impact on our morale, huge impact on our ability to be able to deliver on our promises. How about how you react to challenges? Forced by leaders, well, how do you react? What about optimism instead of pessimism? We just talked about that a little bit more. Choose your attitude. It is really a choice. If you have a victim mindset, that's not going to go very well, and you probably shouldn't be a leader. Unless you can change some of those things, I think that leadership can be developed, but you need to realize it's a choice, your attitude. What you do, decisions you make affect your income, your health, the company's health, the morale of your organization, all those things. If you want your coworkers to smile, is it your employee's fault that they're not smiling? There could be some internal stuff there, but can you help influence them? Are you becoming part of the problem or part of the solution? Are you actually helping encourage them, helping them get up out of it? Sometimes people are just there, and sometimes you can't help them out of that, and you got to keep doing whatever you can, influence them. But think about how you're impacting those situations. Any questions on this here, on this topic of what does it look like to be a leader? Comments, feedback? I know it's a larger group. It's okay. Guys, go ahead and open up. I might just call on you if you don't say anything. Is there anything that stuck out in your mind, kind of this intro of what it looks like to be a leader, that you're like, yeah, that's me, or that's us. We really need some help there? Come on, you guys had to have gotten something, I hope. You guys, otherwise, should we just shut this thing down? I mean, it was bad. And go ahead.
I think it's important to be self-reflective. It kind of highlights some of those items where you think you're good at. Then you look back at situations where you could have done something differently, or you may not be quite at the level you think you are.
That's really
And
good.
so that self-reflective thought process of every day, kind of looking back at how do I get those items, I think is important.
That's really good. That's awesome. Anybody else?
So Shane, you talked about that you can never encourage too much. I don't know if I agree with that, only because there are people out there that when you start to do that, then they expect that, and they want you to tell them every little thing that they've done well, and they run to you and they're like, I've completed this, because some people feel like they need to be encouraged and with every little task. So how do you deal with that?
That's a good question. So I will answer that question. I want to open this up to the rest of us here. What do you guys do in those kind of situations where you have somebody maybe has maturity issues, they're needy, or they just always need approval or acceptance? Or they're, we need to have somebody else take care of the time thing. You're not representing very well. Just teasing you. What do you guys deal with that situation? How do you guys deal with those people that have that kind of stuff? Shane?
I mean, I guess this isn't me personally, but there's the old book, The 1 Minute Manager, right? And then now the new book, The New 1 Minute Manager. And they do talk a lot about that. And one of the things that they do is you teach those people to congratulate themselves, right? So that they're not looking to you for that affirmation. You empower them to understand that they've done well, and then they can kind of, reward themselves for the fact that they've done well. And like building this culture of your accomplishments are celebrated, and at some point, like, you need to recognize you've done well on your own without
always needing that kudos from someone else. Anyone else have any suggestions on that? Those kind of situations where you have someone on your team that is always, and if they don't get encouraged, they're nasty about it or they're bitter about it. How do you guys deal with that? Anyone? This is not just me teaching, we're interacting, right? This is where collaboration comes in. Somebody's got to have some good suggestions. You guys have never dealt with that over here.
I feel like you need to maybe give them a specific project that they can feel empowered to take that on, and then they have a certain goal that they're working towards, and they can see the results of that.
Yeah.
And feel empowered.
That's really good. Give them something that they can feel like they win, or there's some kind of sense of accomplishment, right? I think that you called me out well, because there's never a situation where it's an always, right? And I probably boldly said something, but I guess I wanted to go to the extreme to say that it's good to encourage more, because most people don't do it nearly enough. So, but that is a good balance. If you have unhealthy people to where they expect that, you have to help them grow up too, right? And there's a maturity level thing that we help our team grow in that. That's a side issue which is connected to that. But if they don't know that they're already accepted, they don't know that they're already in a place of, that they're valued, then there's either some insecurities they have, or maybe there's something in your leadership style that makes them insecure as well, right? There could be multiple factors there. So, good question. Go ahead.
So I don't run into this a lot. It used to drive, times I did run into it, used to drive me nuts because it'd be like, well, of course you're doing what you're supposed to do. Why do you need kudos for doing your job?
Right.
Then I kind of, with some people, I found that turning that into, that's great. Yes, you're doing a great job. Now, how can you improve on that? Can you beat that? Can you do better?
That's really good, yeah.
And then that gives them a place to go to do better so that they can feel a sense of accomplishment. And then they're not looking for that. That self-affirmation will come naturally then.
Right.
You set a goal out for me. I accomplished it. Yes, I did a great job.
Yeah. No, that's great. Thanks for sharing that. That's awesome.
Well, I think everybody needs feedback in different ways too. Not
Yeah.
everybody's the same, so you have to figure out what they appreciate and what they don't appreciate.
Yeah. Yeah, some people would like to be recognized. Not saying money's always the answer, but they're like, yeah, you keep telling me, but I'm dirt poor. I can barely feed my family. There's different ways that you can communicate value to people, right? That's really good. That's awesome. Anybody else here? We got time, guys. We're about 25 minutes ahead of schedule. I burned through a lot of stuff. I just spewed all over you guys this morning, and you're probably like, Anyone else? This is your time for you guys to be able to get something more out of this. Maybe anyone have a question or a situation in your workplace that's related to what we just talked about that you guys want to maybe have a little discussion about? Yeah.
Employees who stress out and don't react in a, quite the word I'm thinking of, in a respectful manner to their fellow employees.
Yeah.
And it's usually minor little items that can be addressed quickly and with a little communication. And how do you deal with an employee who's kind of like that, overly stressed all the time for something that really isn't a stressful situation?
That's good. I'm going to open that up to the field, and then I'll try and do my best to answer that as well. Anyone out here have any suggestions on that? And presenters included, you guys can chime in as well. I just want to give everyone out here as fellow peers an opportunity to respond.
I'd like an answer to that too, because we have one of those in our office.
It's a challenge at times.
For me, that kind of a situation, it's about setting and managing expectations. It's about giving them a good vision, showing them the big picture, and here's what we're going to be dealing with. Here's what we can expect. There'll be a few surprises. We'll handle them well. You get that expectation going of what's going to happen and where we're going, and it just becomes a non-issue.
I think in addition to that, it's super important to show and explain to people what their part in that vision is, right? I mean, I think the vision kind of guides everybody, but like, how do you fit into this and how do you contribute to this or take away from it?
That's really good. And sometimes what will happen when you do that, sometimes you'll have people flip out or get offended or get emotional and feel like they're targeted. The way you communicate that is challenging, right? So if you know somebody's very sensitive, you might have to take them aside, and you don't want them to monopolize your time. But obviously, try and do as much as you can publicly to encourage them. If it's still not working, you have to still. I know it's a time suck sometimes, and you have to limit that and figure out if they're going to get there. But try and get to the root issue. Ask yourself why. We have the 5 whys. Anyone ever heard of the 5 whys? It's just a tool, right? Ask yourself in your mind, so why are they like this? Why are they like this? Maybe there's stuff from their, not saying you go into their family counseling and all that stuff and get, like Dr. Phil on them or anything, but I mean, there's some stuff there that's obviously manifesting their behavior. You guys have any suggestions? Go ahead.
Sure. One of the key reasons they're probably easily stressed, they're overwhelmed by the macro. So they see all of those tasks piled together, and the best thing you can possibly do is break down those tasks into the smallest little increments, like J.J. Watts shared on that video, so that they don't get overwhelmed, because when they're starting, they see the 100 components that they're responsible of doing to accomplish that global task. But if you can break it down into tiny little bits for them and help them see the micro, maybe they won't get quite so overwhelmed. Okay, I need to do 10 of these things. No problem. Don't think about anything else until that's done.
That's good.
And then 5 of those things, don't think about anything else until that's done, because if you're focused on all of those things together, that might take you a week, a day, an hour, I don't know, then they get overwhelmed easily. So help them see the micro the best you possibly can, and it will be less overwhelming and less stressful.
Really good, Tad. Go ahead, Bob.
What I find is that a person like this, other people are afraid of them because of their emotional structure. So I have people remember 3 numbers, 55, 38, and 7. And the reason for that is communications experts tell us that when we communicate, a full 55% comes from the nonverbal communications, the eye contact, the structure of our jaw, where our shoulders are. 38% comes from tone of voice, and only 7% comes from the words that we use. So that's why someone can go to a coworker and say, "Will you help me with this?" And then they come and complain to us. And it's not the words they use, it's the message that they communicate. So sometimes you have to get people to understand how their nonverbals are coming across to others.
That's really good. Now, I'll be the first one to call myself out. As an engineer, I had to learn how to like people. I think I even just said this to John in front of him the other day. That sounds really bad, doesn't it? But that was, to be honest with you, I'm not saying all engineers don't like people. Don't get me wrong. I'm not labeling all engineers. But I struggled with learning how to like people, even if I disagreed with them. There's people that are different than you, and they grate on you. And you're like, oh my gosh, this guy just sending me over the cliff right now. Take a deep breath. You're like, I want to do something very harmful, but it's not going to help the situation. Try and be understanding the whole thing of empathy. If you don't understand their world, not saying you need to go and hang out with them for lunch necessarily, you could, but you might want to understand what is it in their world at work that's stressing. Maybe it's other things outside of work that's causing that. And I think you're going to have to figure out how to deal with that. That's going to keep resurfacing, right? It doesn't go away. So I think it's good to have HR representation back here with Bob. He would be able to help answer a lot of those questions even better than I would. That was really good what you shared there, Bob. So I think there's a lot of different approaches, but trying to understand somebody that's different than you, that's what I would try and do. And if you can't, you might need to bring somebody else in. Maybe you're not the one to solve the problem. Maybe you need an outside person that they trust or somebody else that they would listen to better than you, because maybe they're just not receiving the way you communicate. And that's okay. It's okay. I've learned to be okay with, back in the day, I used to be in ministry full time, and I'd preach messages and people would be like, they didn't really get it. And then a few weeks later, a guest speaker came in and they're like, that was the most amazing message. I've been preaching that for the last several months. What's going on? Sometimes we receive better from other people. So think about other people on your team that you can actually get to communicate with them. They might receive it better. Maybe some other good. Anyone else? Go ahead.
I guess he reminded me of something. Yeah. It's kind of more or less the same thing, I guess, but just in my words. But when people go negative, it usually means they need something, where they feel like something is blocking them from the success that they want.
That's good.
So when you figure out what that is, and usually you can figure it out.
Yeah.
Just take care of that and it'll fix the problem.
That's really good, Mike. That's good insight. Yeah. What else? There's got to be some other things that are on your mind. We've got a few minutes here, and we could even take another quick break. We will have one here after the next one. We could take a quick 5-minute break, but I want you guys to get some value out of this stuff today. What is it that's burning in you right now related to what a leader looks like at your workplace that you're like, I don't know what to do about this?
So if you're spending that much time with an employee micromanaging what they're doing, how do you not show this favoritism towards that employee? How does every one of your peers not see that?
It's a good question. That's really good. Anyone have any responses to that? That's a challenging one, isn't it?
Not all people are the same. Not everybody's created equal. I mean, everybody should be treated equally, but not everybody has the same abilities and skills. And so I think explaining that sometimes, because I run in that situation a lot where one employee will gripe about another, and I'll be like, well, he's he's got just a different skill set than you know, and we plan on keeping this person here and working with him. So find a way to pull out what's best in him.
That's good. It's really good. Anyone else? Go ahead, Cam.
I think if we've created an environment of camaraderie and understanding from the beginning, before that problem has arisen, if it has, if we've created an environment that we're a team, we're one company, we're one part of that company, whatever that is, that shouldn't be a problem. Is because if there is an employee that feels that's favoritism or whatever, then I don't think, in my opinion, that's the person that is asking the questions or needing feedback or needing. I don't think that would be their problem. I think that would be the person's problem that you need to have the conversation with that feels that way, and you need to have a group conversation at that point. That it's not about him, it's not about you, it's not about me. It's about us as a team working together.
That's really good. Anyone else have responses to that one?
What was the pro? Was it about favoritism or micromanaging?
Favoritism, it could be perceived as favoritism?
Yeah, because I mean, you guys spend a whole bunch of time laying on goals with one person all the time. So you need to spend more time with that person. So their peers see it as like, oh man, he's spending more time with that guy, so there's a little favoritism going on because he's spending more time with that person.
So perceptions are a lot of times people's reality. We say that a lot, right? I think that also getting in a healthy team environment where you can be open and honest about that. You're like, hey, you know what? I'm going to tell you guys, just like parenting, you can't parent your kid the same way. Each kid's different, right? We're all wired differently. And if I spend more time with one of you or another, don't take that as offense that I'm favoring another. Sometimes there's other challenges that we need to work through at different times. We'll have different things. And they need to be mature enough, because there's immaturity. If there's immaturity, I believe, if you're feeling like somebody's being favored over another, that you have some insecurities yourself. Because you're thinking, well, they're spending more time than he spends with me, and you get offended, right? The number one thing that causes problems is offense. So if you can't get your team mature enough to actually deal with offense, you're going to constantly battle. So you're going to have to help them understand, hey, I'm going to make mistakes, and you're going to have to learn how to forgive me, all right? Because there's a lot of things that I'm going to make mistakes on, and if you're going to hold me to that standard perfect, I'm not going to hold you to perfect, okay? So I expect you guys to have a little grace on me. And just understand, if I'm spending extra time, it's because it's purposeful. It's usually because I'm trying to deal with some challenges for our team, right? Does that help, just kind of help them understand as a team, like as a group, I'd make sure that's clear. And cut that stuff off. When there's gossip about that, you need to cut it off. Go ahead.
Just real quick, I guarantee people that they're going to see favoritism in me, but I tell them that it's always going to be performance-based, and if it isn't, to let me know. But that opens up the ability to say, yeah, I'm favoring that person, look at, they're kicking ass.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say too, is leaders are human too.
Yeah.
And people in general are gonna go where life is more pleasant, works better, flows better, more productive, more profitable, whatever. So if favoritism is being showed, probably the first thing a person should do is look in the mirror and say, okay, how am I being that obstinate, stubborn, rebellious, hard to work with, hard to deal with kind of person?
Yeah.
So that they want to avoid.
Right. And you're going to have, that's a really good question that you brought up. I don't know if any of that helps you a little bit, but I think there's always going to be some conflict. And the way we handle conflict, sometimes we run from it, right? I mean, I know that Bob could probably do like a whole day class on conflict, right? But it's reality of how are we going to respond to it, how are we going to handle that situation, rather than just pretend it doesn't exist or run from it. Let's embrace it. Maybe you handle it heads on. I think you have some discernment about the situation. Is this to be dealt with privately with this person that's offended over somebody having favoritism, or is this something for the group to benefit from because this is a teaching lesson, you know? Because we all need to grow in this, because you're going to see times where I spend more time with others, and that's nothing to knock any of you on the team. It doesn't mean that that person's more valuable. That makes sense? Okay. Good. Anything else?
You know, back on
Yeah.
the favoritism things too, is that, you know, I can't read your mind, Shane. And so if you don't express to me or tell me that you need some additional training, or you feel like you need some additional training, I may see that you're doing an amazing job, but you may feel insecure in what you're doing. So if you don't express that, I'll never know.
That's really good.
Yeah. So how would you guys deal with that? How do you kind of like draw that out of people?
I'd say on the flip side, if you never ask, they may never bring it up.
That's true
And
on both
as
sides.
leadership, sometimes that's our responsibility to initiate the things that we might not even be thinking about initially. Sometimes they don't know it's their responsibility. They weren't put in the position of leadership to ask those questions, whether they're hard or not. Sometimes that's our job to ask those questions initially, maybe even because we don't even know it's a problem. Or even if it's not a problem, it might be something. No, I'm good. No, we're fine.
Yeah.
Or it might be, I'm glad you asked, because I feel that we've been doing this really well, and you know, you haven't talked to me, or we haven't been communicating, talking on. But I think it kind of goes both ways. With leadership, though, I think there's a bigger responsibility on us to initiate those conversations than with the people that are working for us.
Kind of ties into that slide with Edwards Deming, right? We want to blame the people. I just have people that suck. You wouldn't say that, but you're thinking in your mind, I just have a horrible team. These guys don't get it. They're a bunch of crybabies. And we have this attitude about them, the way we perceive them, the way we think about them, the way that we handle them. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, the only perception is reality. I want to be the perception that I'm willing to take the time and individually spend with one over the other on different issues. So not a negative perception of why are you giving them favoritism. It's I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make the team successful. So it's certain leadership. So the perception is, wow, that's always there for whoever, not just that one person. So, and I agree with Kim. If you're not pulling out from all of the employees what their needs are, or how to recognize them, because like I was going to say the same thing. It looks like, you know, there might be some people that have children here. I got 3 kids. They are completely different. And you balance how much time you can spend with each one of them, and their skills are different. But they know that they all can come, and they'll get individual training and support and whatnot. So I would turn that potentially negative into an opportunity or a positive, saying, yeah, I spend a lot of time with Cam, because Cam needs some help. And if you ever need any help, I'm here for you.
He does need a lot of help. Oh, sorry.
And
He has a Sunday Cam, too.
I have a Sunday, but it's, to your point, it's running towards the opportunity. I don't think of it as a problem, and addressing it and saying, yeah, if you feel that way, you're accurate. I am. Not denying your feelings, but I'm also there for everyone else. And you, by the way.
That's great. That's great. Good stuff. Well, let's go ahead and let's take 5 minutes. We'll be back in here just before 9:20, and we'll go ahead and get started on the next topic here.
Before we start, can I ask a few questions, figure out who's in the audience today, and maybe I can do a little bit of tailoring to of the message and discussion around your roles. How many companies do we have here today?
So we're from Montana Precision Products.
Montana.
Montana Precision Products out of Butte.
Okay.
Over here.
Vesta.
That's out of Bitterroot Valley.
Okay. Spectrum.
Montana Hydraulics out of Helena.
Okay.
Elite One Source.
All right. And what does Elite One do?
We're contract manufacturers of dietary supplements and drugs.
Okay. Anybody else? Companies?
So it's primarily 5 different companies.
Five companies.
Northwest, right? Did he speak up?
Northwest Factory Finishes.
Northwest Contractor.
Oh, Contractor.
Okay. How about in terms of roles? I put down administrative, production, engineering, sales, accounting, QA, other, logistics, management. Raise your hand if you're engineering. So probably 7. Production? Couple? 3? 4? 5? 5? How about sales? There's 2. Okay. Accounting. One in accounting? Are you in accounting?
I am.
There's
Yes.
two.
Yes, these two.
Management. God, all this overhead in the room. Probably logistics. Anybody in logistics?
I'm all of it.
All right.
the above.
QA, QC.
Here's all the above.
All right, probably 5 or 6. Great. That will, administrative, I forgot. Anybody administrative? Okay. So about evenly split, management, production, engineering, sales, accounting. So that's helpful to know. Let me start by introducing who I am. I work for Jackson Contractor Group in Missoula. I've been here about 4 years now. Prior to that, worked on the West Coast, various roles, construction, development, had a couple startup businesses. What I would tell you is our business is very similar to all the people here, in that we are a mobile fabricator, if you will. Instead of going to one building, we fabricate at job sites. But the requirements, the challenges are very similar. Kind of a tie together for several years, probably the first 10 or 15 years of my career, I worked at places like Boeing, Weyerhaeuser, Georgia Pacific, Johnson Battery, other manufacturers installing new lines. So the guys that manufactured things had to put in new facilities. So that was my involvement and tie to the manufacturing world. Married, 3 kids, wife and dog. We live in Missoula. The kids are off doing other things. Background, started out as a mechanical engineer and quickly decided that wasn't for me. Went into construction management at WSU, and later went back to graduate school at U of O. So what else could I say? Love Missoula, love the people. Great to be here. 25 years ago, was a project manager at a large job out at Stone Containers. So if you look at the western skyline, we were the contractors when that was built.
Steve, could you project just a little bit more?
Sure. Yeah, great. And if you can't, let me know. I'll speak up, okay? Some ground rules. This is your class. No dumb questions. This is adult ed, and so if you need to stand up and have a question, stand up or stretch or what have you. If there's a question that I can't answer, I'll do a follow-up list. I'll have somebody write it up there. It's okay to disagree. It's okay to say you're full of it. It's okay. Won't hurt my feelings. So the thought is we'll have about 25 to 30 minutes of slides. I think I've got 17 slides. And then some discussion specifically around your particular issues or things that you're facing. So let's start by saying, hey, I think there's some givens in the business world. I heard earlier about value propositions. I think every business has a value proposition, and it's unique, or hopefully it's unique. It's their competitive advantage. I think we also as individuals have a value proposition. So for example, I will say, I'll compare and contrast. Walmart says we are going to have low prices every day, right? Nordstrom says we're going to have amazing service, and you're not going to go to Walmart for amazing service. You're not going to go to Nordstrom's for incredibly low prices. So what is your value proposition as a company? I would hope that if you don't know it today, in the next week or month, you will find out what that is. And then as an individual, we also have value propositions, right? We're going to be the best at whatever we're doing, but is it because I produce more, because I'm a better leader, because I'm a better manager? I think individually we develop our own value propositions. Profits are a requirement to stay in business. And people have said, well, what if we're a nonprofit? Well, nonprofits depend on donations, right? And if you're not producing a product that customers value, you're out of business. So I would tell you profitability is generated by the employees that are engaged, that want to be there, that want to be part of something bigger than an individual. So I could be a one-man band, right? We did a startup company early 2000, and we started with 3 of us. And what I found was I had projects in Houston and LA and Denver, and I was on my own. Yes, I worked with some other people, but that team wasn't there. What I found is I wanted to be in a company where we did things, not I did things. So as a company, as individuals, we decide what kind of company we want to be in. I think the other part is we all have competition. So for us at Jackson, we have a competitor across the street, one on that corner and one on that corner, and all of us have competition, right? And our competitors change and we need to change. I bet Elite One Source has competition, plenty of it. Hydraulics has competition. I think we also have people that do substitutes, right? They could say, for example, Spectrum could say, I'm not going to build a new building, Jackson. I'm going to stay in my building, or Vesta recently went through that. Instead of building a new building, I'm going to stay in the building I have and improve it. Are you guys aftermarket manufacturers or primary to the industry for hydraulics?
Hydraulics? We do a lot of custom work.
Okay. So what I could do is I could order my equipment with all the custom, or I could buy the I'll call it the base equipment and have you doll it up after the fact, right? So there's competitors there. That market changes all the time, and so we're continually adapting as organizations and as individuals within those organizations. And I think that's really important to recognize that we're in the business of managing change, and part of that is our people. So a lot of people say, hey, people are our greatest assets, and that's, I think, one of the reasons why we're here today is the mission started, how can we as a group, I'll call it the 5 companies here, the speakers, their companies, become very best of class in the US. Or how about nationwide or international too? That's the objective, is move Montana to the top, right? So, a couple of assumptions, and you guys have heard this over and over. People are your greatest asset. I would tell you people are not your greatest asset, and you get to choose which one you believe in. People are your greatest challenge. I can turn on a machine, it never complains, it doesn't care about overtime. When it's cold, it still runs. In the construction business, Dick Anderson's a competitor. He can go down to Western States and buy a backhoe the same as we can buy. Same one we can buy, right? I saw some machines at Vesta and Spectrum. Your welders, I can go buy the same welder. Matter of fact, I can go put my welders in the same building, and I could probably buy a tube bender, right? Same tube bender you have, the difference is the people that are running it, the people that are managing the operation. I think that takes us to an intersection, right? We have to have a value proposition. Individuals at your company have to have a value proposition. I heard people say, you know, boy, I have a lot of choices. People have switching choices too. Gosh, I really like I don't like working for Best. I'm going to go to your company because I have better managers. And what we find over and over is our people leave, they don't leave Jackson, they leave their manager, right?
Right.
They don't walk out of the company. We have got great pay, great benefits. I don't care. I don't like my managers. So for us to be world class, we need to have world class managers. We have to figure out how to be profitable. We have to understand our competitors and understand our value proposition and continue to improve our advantage, whatever that is. We have to manage our change, and we get to choose how we manage and lead our people, right? So who are the managers in the room? How long have you been managing on average, give or take? How many years?
1.
Okay.
2.
1, 2. How many?
10 years.
10, okay. How about others? 7. Has that changed in 10 years or 1 year, how you manage?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, it continues to change too, I would bet. So my take is there's only one answer on the deal, and that is we go all in on people, right? I'll give you an example from Jackson. I mentioned everybody can buy the same equipment. We all have hammers and tools, and the difference is always, always, always our people. And typically it's going to come down to the people managing the people, right? We've got great craftsmen, our great craftsmen, and over the years I've met some fantastic craftsmen that were average when they had average managers. You go, well, why did it cost so much? Why didn't it get finished on time? And the difference between fantastic results and okay results was a manager. So what does it take to be a good manager? And I think I heard the word before, it's empower your people. So through our actions, through our decisions, and our behavior each and every day, okay? So if we can adopt belief that it's people are the competitive advantage that we have in Montana, that we as managers, new managers, older managers that are adapting, changing, growing, that we will move Montana up, okay? So how do you grow? I put down, let me back up. I came out of a technical skill, engineering-based technical skill, and then went into management. I'm probably pushing 60 now, and so I've seen a number of cycles. Personally, I've gone through cycles, but I've also seen a lot of people go through cycles. Here's some things that I think we run into as individuals, as organizations. So different adoption rates. Does anybody know what that is? Okay, who's in the production? Over here.
Raise your hands, production.
So, God dang it, I don't want to change. We've been doing it that way for 10 years. Why do we have to change? Right? You may have a 1 year, and he says, well, gosh, this is great. We have a new tool. Let's go. And you're going, I've been doing it this way for 10 years. I don't need to change. Anybody else have some adoption rate examples? We have a new accounting system. You know, it's going to be great. Yeah, right. I'll see you in 2 years. Right? I'm going to change our vehicle policy at work. Yeah, right. We did that 4 years ago. Come back. I'll see you in a year.
Right.
Right? So we have different adoption rates as individuals and as a company. As a company right now, our adoption rate is about 12 months. So big idea, Shane comes in and says, we have a big idea, it's about 12 months. I don't know if you guys know your adoption rates, but I think we'll have one as individuals and as a company. Recognize your development path. So manager over here, how did you get to be a manager?
Showing skills.
Okay, so you came through a technical skill, right? You developed skills, and then somebody said, gosh, I like what you're doing, will you be a manager? Okay? How about over here?
Kind of the same way, step into the position, but your knowledge of your skill set will put you where you need to be.
Right.
Hopefully they acknowledge that, but your skill set in a particular field or whatever will put you.
So you use the technical launching pad to go into management,
Yes.
okay? So there's different development paths. So maybe I've seen guys in sales move over into management, horrible managers. I've seen engineers, fantastic engineers, horrible managers, right? And we see it over and over. So there's different paths to get to management. There's different transition points. And part of this is for us to recognize it and then learn how we move through our transition. What I found with my own transition, and I'll give you a quick example, I had a job in Port Angeles, Washington. It was about $20 million. If this was the job trailer, I was over in the corner with a mound of paper, working my tail off, and my whole staff was over on that end of the trailer going, gosh, you know, I wish he would tell us what we need to do. That was my first thrust into management. I was great at technical skills. The job was way too big for one guy. The whole staff was twiddling their thumbs. So there's some transition points. Learn to help your people move through them. So as a manager, you've gone through them. You're now helping your people move through their transition points. So here's what I use at our office to explain that adoption rate, okay? I'll give you an example. Our IT guy is right here. His name is Rich. Got an idea? Great, let's go. Okay? You have our estimator, chief estimator. My job is to have the same results every time, every day, right? Tell me about change, come back. As a matter of fact, don't come back. And the company is someplace in here, and what I'm finding happens over and over and over when I try to move too quick or too slow, we lose people. So it's gauging that adoption rate. You have a new process, you've got a new tube bender, we're gonna make this new product. Hey, let's plan it. You know, our estimators over here going, give me the rules, show me how to do it, let's practice a couple times and then sell. Over here, sales going, let's go, right? And someplace you have to find that adoption rate that works for you. And by the way, if I'm this guy and you're pushing on me, I'm going to seize up, right? I'm going to seize up and say, you know, get somebody else. So I think understanding your adoption rate, because you may say go and all your people are over on the blue line, forget it. You're going to, right? And you guys have probably seen that before. John has a new product. Did you take some new orders in the last year? And did some of your people say, great job, John? And other people said, you're crazy.
That's good range.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's accurate.
Yeah. And so at some point, you as a group need to decide what your adoption rate is. And so for us, I'm thinking about a year out, 2 years out, and getting things in the queue. If I wanted a year, if I want that item or item, that process, that direction set, I'm trying to plant the seeds a year out. Okay? Here's where our engineers show up and they become crappy managers. And I'll call me that guy, right? So I started my career building industrial projects, paper mills, airline factories for Boeing, and I was a good estimator and I knew my way around equipment and all of the bearings and parts and how they run and how to align parts and pieces and how to set them up. And then somebody said, boy, you're doing a good job. Why don't you be a manager, right? As a matter of fact, it wasn't quite that clear. It was, here's your staff, go build this other job. And I failed. Like this place right here. So this was in I think this is in 1989. One of the vice presidents, the president called up the vice president and said, we've got this guy that isn't worth 2 bits up in Port Angeles, go fire him. And so Mark Miller, who was my mentor, drove up to Port Angeles, said, I'm here to fire you. But I think you have potential. So I'm not going to fire you. And that was a fantastic lesson. Literally, I was a guy with paper stacked up this high, staff over here. So my mentor said, I see the transition you're in. You need some help. He came out of the Army, and he said, in the Army, you're not allowed to fire people. So I've learned how to grow my people, right? And your comment about needing help, why are you giving Steve so much help? Because he really needs it right now. So every week, he did something that somebody else mentioned. We had daily goals and weekly goals. And we practiced that for 6 months, right? Every week he drove from Portland to Port Angeles and said, okay, let's look at our daily goals. Let's look at our weekly goals. How are you doing? And somebody said it here, we tried to improve every week. First couple of weeks I fell down, right? You're still in the firing mode, right? But it was clear that that was the transition point to go from technical doer to manager.
Hold on, just how many of you guys feel like you're in that transition right now?
Okay.
What are the challenges that you're experiencing with that? This is a safe place.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll tell you how I was. Overwhelmed, working 20 hours a day. The fact is, how about this? We had probably had 100 people in the field, had a staff of about 6 or 7, overwhelmed, disorganized, knew I was failing, didn't know how to get out of it, right? It was chaos. I mean, with a capital C. And I went, and so as a technical expert, I was darn good at understanding all the equipment and all of this other business. I was really struggling with the management side. So I was on this path and got thrust into this path. So I would tell you my skills eroded over time and I continued on some other path. Does that sound familiar? And the other part is, as the projects changed over the years and the staff and the way we do business changed, my methods and approach had to change too.
So Steve, sorry to interrupt again. How did you break out and make that transition? Was it mentorship? What do you think was the most critical part that helped you?
So I think it's pretty simple. It feels like a choo-choo train, right? Somebody's been through the transition phase before you. Let's call that the engine. And does everybody have a mentor here in the room? So those people are helping you, drag you along, and you're on the other end pulling the other people with you, right? And some people, I think, want to move. And some people say, you know what, I am going to be that guy. I'm going to be, or that person. I was at Diversified Plastics, and they had a mechanic in their shop, and he has chosen to be their technical expert in the shop, right? He was in the tool and die setup, and he said, that's my deal, that's where I'm going to be, right? You're not going to pull him along because he's on a different path, but there's some other people in the room that said, hey, I'm a really good technician, but I want to expand that sphere and be a manager and pull my people along. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I just wondering how that worked for you. You kind of had some mentorship with your manager? Or?
The guy that actually hired me, that was sent up to fire me, said, hey, we're going to do something different. You know, and I'll give you a couple questions that you can ask yourself. Do I want to improve, and do I want to go down that path? If so, you need some help. And I think we're all in that mode of helping each other move down our paths. Here's what my path looked like, right? I started out, I became proficient at my craft being estimating and setting equipment and what have you, and I jumped over. And what I think is really important here is, fact is, my curve went down to here, right? Boom, and started back over. And fortunately, I had somebody there to help me out of the weeds. So does that make sense? And I suspect you went through something similar, right? Darn good on the red line, struggling on the green line to start over.
Sorry to interrupt one more time. This is just really stir stuff. So how many of you guys feel like you have somebody like Steve in your life right now, or in your organization, that's helping you in those transition moments? Raise your hand if you feel like you have somebody like that. You don't have to look at your manager and be like,
so,
What do you mean in your personal life?
So I would encourage you, if you don't, find that person, right? Or become that person. So if you probably have somebody dragging you, they're the choo-choo pulling, you're in the line of cars, and you probably have some young people that you're trying to pull along too. What I've seen over and over is we hire a lot of construction management engineering grads that come out and become project engineers and project managers. They are horrible project managers. As a matter of fact, you talk to most of our engineers that make that leap, they'll go, boy, I wish I could go back and just do submittals and, you know, build things, because man, this management stuff is really tough. And it is, because it's not just a piece of paper, it's not just a 2x4, and those people need somebody to help show them, guide them, give them attention. They require a lot of attention, nurturing, watering, and then watch out, get out of their way, because they're on, you know. Make sense?
who's got a bulletproof program that's doing that well right now as an organization? Do you have something that's in its infancy stage that works pretty well that you want to share with the team? Share with all of us? So it shows room for opportunity, right? So don't be discouraged, say, man, we really suck. Say, this is something that can really help. I think this is really enlightening. I thank you for sharing.
How do I get back to a full slide?
Yeah.
Technical skills have eroded there. Thank you. And then maybe there's a different path too. And I've seen, I think the important part here is we see people coming into the business, a lot of it probably similar to manufacturing. It requires a certain level of technical skill to become a business leader, to become an operational manager. You just have to know about the business. So I'll call it, these guys usually come in, and maybe I've seen accountants come to this, I've seen salespeople come through, and that's because they're just persistent and they have managed to surround themselves with good talent, right? We had a superintendent that was amazing. He didn't know squat about the job, But he was amazing at surrounding himself with fantastic people. He was an awesome manager leader. So here are the things that I think we look at and say, are you motivated to learn and improve? Right? Pretty simple. Yes, I am, or no, I'm not. You're leveraging your technical skills, and I think we all do at some point, whether it's accounting, right? Or machinery or manufacturing, we leverage those skills to teach others and bring them along. Are you self-aware or becoming self-aware? When I was in graduate school, what I found, the requirement for the program I went through is you had to be full-time employee and you went to school full-time. So that was just the deal. When I got stressed, my back seized up. First time I was early 40s, never before, right? So when my back seizes up, something's wrong. Simple indicator. That's my first check right now. Do I have a sore back? If I do, what's going on? Because your emotion speaks, or at least my emotion kicks in before my logic. So if you're feeling discomfort, what's going on? Are you aware? You probably have a good manager. I would argue that some of the best managers have good managers they're working for that are teaching them, right? Anybody disagree with that? You are developing your adoption rate. So, like I say, my adoption rate was how about my natural adoption rate is pretty fast. Complete failure as a manager when I tried to impose my adoption rate. I have set my adoption rate down to 1 year for the company I'm working at. I want to move in 2 months, 3 months, let's go. Hey, no one's following. You help manage discomfort. So somebody you were talking about that needs constant feedback, there's some discomfort there maybe, right? I need to know I'm doing a good job. So you're helping manage their discomfort by your actions and the things you do.
The good thing is I know where the discomfort is coming from, so that helps.
Mm-hmm.
It's an employee that came from an environment that the manager was constantly berating them, yelling at them.
Highly criticized.
What an awful job they're doing. I mean, throwing things at her. I mean, just unbelievable environment she came.
So I'll give you, in the next slide or two, I'll give you an example of where I've seen some solutions for that. So here's a step. Do you have a mission statement? Does your company have a mission statement? And the example I use over and over is when I have a mission statement, try this out. We're going on a trip to New York, okay? That's 3,000 miles away. And the wind blows and I get knocked off course, but I still know where I'm going. That's what I think a mission statement does. It says, hey, even when I'm knocked off course and things happen, I still generally know where we're going, right? And as employees, we get knocked off course every day of the week. A deadline, something didn't fit, got a rush order. Our mission statement says, and I'm going to use Spectrum as an example, fantastic stainless products that help people enjoy the water environment. I don't know what that mission is, but when I see it, it creates beauty at the pool, right? So if I'm doing something, I get knocked off course and I'm behind schedule, do I do a crappy weld? Probably not. I go, hey, we're creating beautiful parts to help people enjoy the water. I would say, hey, I'm going to wait and say, Shane, I'm behind. I need another hour for that weld, or somebody's in the dip tank. I need to do it right. That's our value proposition. We're doing it right. You're going to have an amazing product. In the hydraulic business, you may say, guaranteed your product will work, right? Every time. So Casey Powell was a guy in the tech business in Portland. Their value proposition was 100% customer satisfaction. And so he tells a story about two employees getting a call. So they did accounting and IT stuff for companies, and you have transactions over the holidays. It's a really big deal. The client called up and said, hey, we've got problems, and these 2 employees got out their credit card and flew to New York and spent the whole holiday getting their IT system back in order. Why? Because they were clear about their value proposition. Our job is to deliver great service to our customers. I would ask you to make sure you're aware of what that is. I talked about, at this point right here, that red line, your value proposition is what you do, right? When you go over here, your value proposition is what your team does. It's not what you accomplish, it's what your team accomplishes, right? You're being measured, and hopefully you're measuring success. And the reason why you're part of a company is because you want to be part of something bigger than you. And if that's not the case, take pause and say, what am I doing, right? I got lost here. And down here, your ability to empower your people. And so I call it the no mystery management. As a new manager, that guy in the corner of the trailer, I was in full-on mystery management. How the devil do you get everybody to do their job, right? Well, first off, you talk about what needs to be done and what their role is. This one I like. Celebrate the advancement of your people. So my claim is the president of Jackson worked for me 25 years ago. 2 vice presidents at a national contracting firm worked for me. And there's another president out there someplace. But the idea is they had skills I didn't have, and that's great. I helped them go through their transitions and away they went. So celebrate that. Allow it to happen. Go play to your strengths. I want to talk about empowering people. So this is what I call the no mystery management. And I used a pretty simple deal here, which is, this says neighborhood, city limits, state, regional, okay? So I have a new employee, they show up on day one, I say, here's the deal, here's your office, and here's what we're going to do, and do everything within that sphere, right? So in the neighborhood, go out to the edge of the neighborhood, and by the way, the only way I'm going to criticize you is if you don't make decisions when you're in the neighborhood. A year later, they have more skills, and I'm going to reset some boundaries. And so the practical application is something like this. We have a job that comes into bid. Let's call it the mercantile. So that comes into bid. You're a pretty good estimator. I'm going to say, go estimate it. Don't submit the number until I approve it before it goes out the door, right? And by the way, it's due on Friday. So that's the city limits. I'm going to celebrate all the successes, all the failures in the city limits. If you go outside the city limits, submit the number without me looking at it, I have reason to jump up and down, right? Everything within the city limits, go make smart decisions. I trust you. Because it was my job to help to set the limits, right? So somebody had a question about trust. Hey, have you set the limits? And then let them run within the limits. And then you go, well, maybe the limits are too big or they're not big enough, right? But what I found repeatedly is people will continue to stretch those limits, and you need to give them the authority to do it. If they're outside the limits, I would argue that you probably haven't done a thorough enough job setting the limits, or clear enough, right?
What's that look like, Steve? Like, give an example of what that looks like for setting boundaries and communicating that and making sure that's clear.
Okay, let's see. Tell me what you're responsible for this week. Something that's due this week or in 2 weeks.
Keeping machinery up and running.
Okay, machinery's up and running. So an example might be way out here, boss says, keep the machinery up and running. The guy down here's somebody that works for you or person. You may say, look, I want the machinery run to have maintenance from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. In the event that you need to buy another $50,000 worth of parts, I want to know about it before we buy it. Or if you come up against a condition where you don't know how to do it, please call Frank, okay? And so he says, I'm going to go out and maintain the equipment, and I'm going to do everything that I think I know how to do, but if I find something that I'm not quite sure, I'm going to call Frank. And so it's real clear, did he call Frank or not, right? And the measurement's going to be at the end of the week, was the equipment up and running? How's that? And I'm going to raise hell if it's not running, right? And if it doesn't run and he stayed within the limits, great. We had a problem. I'm going to share in the failure, and we're going to learn from it, right? We're going to decide, hey, what happened? Well, you know, I put the wrong part in. That's something I haven't seen before. Or I put the wrong oil in the machine, for example, or I had the wrong level, or I used the wrong sensor. But that's something that probably won't make that mistake again.
What I'm even actually thinking about is, how many of you guys have job description in here? And what about the training aspect of that too, right?
So a example at Jackson is a contract comes in, and if it's over $5 million contract, I want to review it before it gets signed. So your authority is 5 and your authority is 1 million. So any kind of $1 million contract, I'd like to look at it so that I can see what red lines or markups you've made and we can learn. Well, the guys that have already been through that program, I want to see it at 5 million, and this is the $20 million contract, as an example. And it could be an order, for example. The order is, here's the specs and the price and the parts and the delivery, and I want to be able to look at it to make sure we can deliver what the customers ask for, right? Does that make sense?
So I got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
So you got a guy that you're got at the bottom of the line, you gave me the $50,000 limit. How do you keep him from relying on Frank without you knowing, worried about making you, I'm not saying look bad or disappointing you, I guess?
So ideally, you've told him, Frank, you know who Frank is, and you've set his boundaries, right? And you trust Frank. In this case, you trust Frank, and he goes to Frank, and he says, hey, we need to spend money to go get it. And Frank looks at it and says, does Frank spend the money or not to get the parts? He does in this case?
Yeah.
So he spends the money, but you've set Frank's spending limit at some number, and in theory, he's still within that limits, and you find out the parts really weren't needed or they were back in the storeroom, right? That's your learning moment. And they're not, I think at least for me, the learning moments you're trying to set up around, they're not fatal to the company, they're not fatal to the individual, fatal being catastrophic, right? What are the examples of that? We had a project. I said it needs to be done on a certain, hell, I didn't. The client said it needs to be done on a certain time. And our guy chartered an airplane to fly basically a piece of equipment the size of a Volkswagen from the East Coast to the West Coast. It was a pretty healthy bill. Did it? I mean, it was healthy. It was $35,000. There was another option out there. He was within his limits, and we learned from it. I learned from it. You know, I learned that, hey, I need to do a better job setting the boundaries. He got the job done and got a pat on the back, and at the same time, he learned when I learned. Shane, okay. Let's see. how are we doing? We're doing okay on time. Awareness, so what is your company's objectives? Are you able and willing to delegate? I would argue that if you're not able to delegate, it's probably because you haven't set some boundaries and shared those with your employees. I trust, you create trust by continuing to deliver within the boundaries and continuing to push out those boundaries. And fact is, what's really exciting is people will ask for more boundaries, right, to push them out. That's exciting. Hey, I've got this. And they continue to deliver, and they will push them out for you. Whoops, here we go. What is your adoption rate? How are your people adopting, right? Our estimator, no change, right? No change, don't want to do that. IT guy, let's go. And what are you doing to empower those people that work for you, right? Any questions? I brought a couple books. What I thought I would do is just, these two guys are going to pick random numbers between 1 and 50. You guys just number yourselves. You guys have your numbers? Okay. Just pick a number between 1 and 50. You're not telling anybody, okay? What I'd like to do is just number off, go down the row and number off.
1, 13.
In order. No, those guys in random. All right, wasn't clear. All right.
4,
6,
7,
8,
9,
10, 11,
12, 13.
14,
15,
16,
I got 17.
18, 19, 20.
21?
22?
23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28,
Bingo.
29.
30, 31,
32,
33.
34.
35.
All right. So, what I want to do is pass out a couple books. So it sounds like we have two people that
I got a
hit the
question
number.
before you wrap up. Can you talk a little bit about, in leadership, when you're looking, whether it's a big project or small project, preparation, and when you're, as a vice president of one of the biggest construction companies in Montana, what preparation, whether it's with employees or with the project itself that you have implemented to make yourself successful?
Oh, great question. So what we started implementing a couple of years ago was what we call the CAT review, so Construction Awareness Team. And the idea is that we build the entire project on paper, so cost, schedule, staff, subcontractors. So typical jobs that you see here in town have probably 40 to 50 subcontractors. And so let's call it, one way to look at it is they're an extension of our company for the period of that job, but we will go through and plan the job, sequence it, identify the issues, identify the roadblocks on paper before we ever started in the field. And that may mean things like, we had a fab facility at Intel several years ago. It was a very quick schedule. It was about $70 million in 7 months. So basically twice the mercantile in 7 months, or 3 times the mercantile. We interviewed every sub manager. So if you're the drywall sub or you're the steel erector, we interviewed their managers just like we interviewed our own people. And there were several people that didn't make the cut, right? We just said, hey, you're a good person, join the team. We're not hiring you, you need to find a different manager or we'll find a different firm. So I think it's about people, right? The companies were capable, but we were finding the right people to join the team. And I think the other part is get darn clear about when you have the wrong person and get them off the team. And what my example for that was, we had a large canola oil facility in Moses Lake, Washington. Had an iron worker, didn't want to follow safety rules. Well, he's one of our best guys. That's okay. What he has decided is he doesn't want to follow our rules. That's okay. He just can't do it here. He can go someplace else and play by his own rules or somebody else's rules, but this is how this group is going to behave. Hey, he may be a great guy, but he just doesn't get to play ball on our team. That simple. Is that?
Yep.
I think you really talked about a question that I was going to ask, and that was like how you make sure that people's personal value propositions align with the company value proposition, right? Because people can be great at things, but when their value doesn't drive in the direction the company needs, that doesn't.
How about theory and actuality? In theory, if we have a really solid, strong company value proposition, it will attract employees that subscribe to that value proposition. And I believe, not necessarily immediately or over time, the employees will evict that person from the team, right? That's, I think managers don't have to fire people. Your team fires people because they go, it's not very comfortable around here. You tell me you want quality products and I really don't give a hoot, right? And over time, this group here is all bought in and said, we love seeing our quality products on swim decks all over the world. She doesn't believe that. And pretty soon those employees walk out the door. They just go, it's uncomfortable here. All right. So I want to go back to go ahead, yeah.
Well, you talked about value propositions a lot as an example. What's Jackson's value proposition?
Helping improve the communities where we live and work every day of the week. And our value proposition is getting the job done, for making promises on budgets, hitting the deadlines, and delivering quality projects every time. So Mr. Dependable, if you will. If we say we're going to do it, we do it. And you think about it, a client comes out and says, gosh, I've got $20 million. Would you go build me a job? I mean, that is a scary thought. I don't know if I can trust Shane or not. And so pulling your wallet out and give somebody, hey, here's $5 million, go build the job, or whatever the amount is, to know that it will be built, it's going to work, it's going to look good, it's going to function, it's going to do the things I ask you to do at the date, for the price, every time.
Matt, did you have something back here?
Yeah, we won't cover it in our specific for communication, but I was wondering if you or anyone uses what I call after action review. So after a job's done, after whatever, do you do a feedback session with those, or manufacturers, those that actually do the work, to gain feedback to improve a process?
So every Friday morning we meet at 7 a.m. and we go through what's coming up the next week, and then every week we have a project review. So the project team puts together a summary of that project. I think it does two things. One, it highlights what they've learned. It not forces. That opportunity allows them to recap what they've learned, so internalize it. I think the other thing it does is it allows everybody in the company to see what's going on. It gives visibility to what we're doing, and ideally it shares that learning that that project team got on that job with the rest of the company. So yeah, it happens every week, and right now we're on a click of about one project starting and finishing every 10 days. So every week there's something on the docket.
Anyone else doing something similar in your organization?
I think the other thing we're doing is safety reviews. So if we have an incident, there's a safety report out. I know I'm running tight on time. I'll make this quick. favorite story about that, we're working at Intel, 1997, building a fab, and they are absolutely all about zero injuries, right? Absolutely make the dates, make the quality, no injuries. So we had about 1,300 craftsmen on the job I was on, and they had a fatality in Israel. And so their deal is when there's an incident, they have a company-wide distribution, says, hey, here's the incident, here's the root cause, here's the recommended solution. The fatality was a man was in a man basket, and typically the equipment you see out on jobs have a two toggle. One's a control, it says, hey, I'm in control, and then I'm going to operate it. Somebody had taped that safety out, drove his neck right into the underside of a slab and killed him. We went out, the safety alert comes out at 7 a.m. By 10 a.m. we found not half, I think we had about 50 lifts on the job right then. We found 15 that had the same condition. So again, it's that ability to learn, have a system in place, you know, whether it's welds or issues with fittings. Hey, how do we learn and share that?
Hey, Steve, do you do the same thing with near misses?
Yes, yeah, same deal. Same deal. And the idea is, hey, we're trying to learn, improve, raise awareness. Let me go back to the book. So the book is a book, it's not a textbook, it's a textbook told in story format. It was a theory of constraints, so what's preventing us from being successful? I think the bigger message that I got out of it was, wow, if we can harness people power so we're all marching the same direction, watch out, cool things happen. Any other questions? And I'll finish on time, I hope. Good? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.